that. Well, let's kick it off. Welcome back to a new edition of Elevated Intel, the podcast for the Florida Cannabis Action Network. This is a special edition with me, Hector Roos, member of the leadership team of Florida Can. I am here with cannabis attorney Michael Minardi, who's been a stalwart champion for many years in this space, a champion who has promoted legislation, promoted the business side of it, and it's more important, and especially and importantly to this conversation, the consumer and patient side of things. So, Mike, why don't you say a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll jump into what's happening in current events.
Hey man, how you doing? Pleasure to be on here. Always love Florida Can and what they do around the state. I'm one of the best organizations continuing to be up at the legislature, trying to educate these people brick walls on cannabis not being the most dangerous thing in the world. I think you got it all on me. Minority Law. Ran for office in 2020. I've been practicing for 23 years now. My biggest efforts are in the courtroom, pushing for employee rights and working on trying to get all the roadside testing in the state for cannabis and hemp thrown out.
Out. That's right.
Out. Bullshit.
100%. So coming back to current events, I mean, you have had a track record of success in the courtroom and representing the people, right? Knock on wood. And you've, your most recent success has been the representing an appellate decision of a firefighter paramedic, where the trial court sided with you and your client. As a cannabis patient, as long as they weren't impaired on the job, they had existing protections to accommodate disabilities. So, by the way, was that person also a veteran?
He was not a veteran. He was a firefighter. He is a firefighter, though, and great. And a paramedic licensed by the Department of Health throughout the state of Florida.
That's incredible. So they just did he admit that he was a patient, or did he go through a drug test?
So it was a random drug test, not for impairment or anything of that nature. He tested positive. He went through the procedures. He provided his medical marijuana prescription as proof of a legal justification for why he had it in his system. And the department or county didn't want to accept that because they don't want everyone to think that their firefighters are high on weed all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. So how did it feel that your client actually won his case, and then it's Sarasota County, right?
It's Tampa, city of
Oh,
Tampa.
so Tampa, so City of Tampa Fire Department. Okay, and then they decided to appeal rather than say for what's their
They
justification?
They appealed, saying the lower court was wrong, saying that because it's a Schedule I substance, federally illegal, and a dangerous substance, that they shouldn't have to allow their employees to use it, whether or not they're on work premises or off. That's the basic gist of it, and it's really disgusting, and it's just canna discrimination, is what it is.
100%. So now you're just waiting for an appellate decision and see where it goes.
Yes, we are. We're waiting for an appellate decision, which would have statewide impact on the case. The Attorney General's office, in addition to the city, the Attorney General's office filed an amicus brief in this matter, because they believed it was an issue of great public importance that cities and towns don't have to allow people to use the most safe, effective medication known to man, marijuana.
Imagine that. What was the feedback from the panel, the judge panel?
Oh, one of the judges definitely did not like anything I was saying at all. It's great when you go onto the second DCA website and you look at the picture, and you pull it up before you hit play. It's just her with this look of disgust. And that was definitely directed at me. Towards the end, at one of the things, the chief judge was like, "Any other questions?" She's like, "I've heard enough from him." I kept on disagreeing with her. The judge in the middle seemed to be great, and then the other judge on the left really didn't say much at all for questions or anything like that. But the judge on the right was continuously pelting me with questions on the issues that I was disagreeing with. Don't you agree that if he tests positive, he's impaired per their definition, and therefore he's under the influence? I said, no, I don't agree, because he shouldn't have tested positive. As soon as he gave the medical review officer the prescription or recommendation showing that he had a legal substances in his system, the medical review officer should have found that as a negative test, not a positive. We went through the definition of prescription and non-prescription drug in Florida, which is defined in their policy the same way it is in state statute, which to me blows my mind because a prescription and non-prescription drug means, any drug written by a doctor, ordered by a doctor, or any drug that is widely available for medical use in the state of Florida, either authorized by Florida or federal law. And clearly, in our case, and we did rate the opinion, the judge did make some modifications to it on the trial court level, but she did find that medical marijuana treatment centers were special pharmacies,
Yeah.
licensed by the state, and that medical marijuana was a prescription or non-prescription drug. And I really, I'm assuming that if the appellate court denies our appeal, or grants, I should say, the county's appeal, they won't address those specific issues.
Right. Yeah, let's try to avoid that conversation. But that's really interesting because this is again a constitutionally protected a medical program. 100. Yeah, that's amazing. Well,
Correct.
so this seems to be a
The
war.
constitutional argument.
No, go ahead.
And the constitutional argument goes to the same issue as to why we got flower in Florida, right? The
Mhm.
section C, I believe it says not required to accommodate on-site use. So it's our position that they were, through the Constitution, are required to accommodate off-site use.
That's amazing. That's an amazing thought on that note. And this is just one of many battles you fought in the courtroom. The next fight is you have a client that's a hemp retail space in the Tampa Bay area, right? Who had all
Yes.
their business was raided and had all their merchandise confiscated, despite selling their business selling legal products. So tell us more.
Yep. Yeah, and this is going on throughout the state now. We have at least 4 other hemp stores that have been raided throughout the state, and employees arrested in those cases for selling cannabis. So this fundamentally comes down to a few problems, and this is kind of how I started off the show with my goal is to get all the roadside testing in Florida thrown out, at least until November 26th, or into hopefully they'll push the federal THCA law and stuff down the road some more, and not accept that formula. But so that's really the issue of it, the roadside test kits. And I know from at least supposedly the best test kit manufacturer out there, Detecticam, they're supposed to be the most advanced one, but they all clearly acknowledge that the roadside test kits, number one, what they do is they create a ratio of CBD to THC. It doesn't test for percentage. And number two, it includes all THC molecules,
Right.
versus a ratio of CBD molecules.
And we're still discovering new ones every day.
Yeah, so of course, Delta 8, Delta 10, THCV, THCP are all going to test hot, even though those, we won't talk about the THCA monkey, but those are all been declared federally legal, clearly in multiple different states and
you're
federal
saying
opinion.
the roadside test was utilized in the raid to test these products in terms of determining their legality?
So the roadside tests were used in 2 occasions. Number one, when they did the first undercover buy, they then used the roadside test and it tested positive. Number two, then when they went into the facility, and technically they were there for the flower that they bought during the, from my perspective, that was the only part of the raid that they could go there for. From the flower that they purchased, that they knew it was illegal. They then started opening up everything and testing all of his products and things like that, which of course the THCP, the THCA, all those were testing hot. And so they confiscated all of those. And they, in addition, in this case, they also confiscated CBD, dog treats, things, anything, their position is anything that said THC on it was illegal.
Wow. So, and you said this is just the first time it had been done. Your client was the first in a series. So was this a campaign of enforcement?
So no, and as far as there was seemingly one busted in Tampa yesterday as well, but this is the only one that we're involved with in Tampa. All the rest of them, we have Manatee County, Sarasota County, Miami-Dade County, the last
Sure.
guy we got a call from. So it's really a multitude of different counties. It's Orlando, from a package, Marion County,
So
from a person that was, selling THCA online. Cops assumed it was illegal marijuana and set up a buy bust operation. Crazy. Then rammed the guy. He was sitting in his car in the parking lot and they rammed him literally. And he's like, it's not a ram. It was just a defensive posture to prevent him from trying to flee. But they literally rammed the car and the guy messed his back up and everything. So hopefully we'll get that case dismissed and then sue them civilly for the damages that they did to the client.
so what's the justification they're saying for these busts?
Honestly, they just that it's marijuana. Their position is just it's marijuana because their tests don't have any sort of ability to distinguish between THCA and Delta 9. And that includes not only their roadside tests, but also the FDLE lab test
Right.
and Pinellas County chemist and local labs. We're also challenging that right now, especially in the Smokey Jones case. We are currently set for a hearing on Friday. The state filed a motion to continue it. We are set for a hearing tomorrow on that, which I'm vehemently objecting to it. And personally, it's not really a question about the science. It's a question about whether or not THCA should or should not be a legal substance. They're trying to get Dr. Curran from the Florida Department of Agriculture to testify. We know what his position is on it, and the Florida Department of Agriculture, if people don't know, they've been busting, or not busting, but inspecting and short stop selling THCA products for the past 2 years now.
Sure. So it reminds me of a analogous situation with a powered sound equipment where people, you're turning on your car radio too loud and you can get a ticket for it, but the police officer is going to say it's too loud just based on what they hear, not because they
Yeah.
have some instrument that can actually say what the decibel level is, right? Or a complaint from a neighbor and they didn't hear the music, right?
Well,
Uh,
and the crazy thing is they not only do they only rely on their tests, they don't even know how to read the lab tests that hemp companies get with all the products. Like that standard that the US Postal Service, requires and accepts for shipping. And they don't even know how to read the lab reports. They don't even know how to differentiate the different cannabinoids. Don't even know that there's different THC molecules in the plant. The education and law enforcement throughout this state on hemp is absolutely atrocious.
so you're saying that in this case, your client Smokey Joe's that has the hearing coming up, they had approval from the federal government through the postal service verifying the legality of the product being shipped to his location.
And actually, they absolutely do in this case. And one of the charges that he is charged with is importation of a controlled substance. And it literally has a letter from the United States Postal Service saying that we removed this from the mail to check and determine whether or not it was an illegal or non-mailable substance. After reviewing the package, we determined it was mailable because he had all the test results in there. He had the
Right.
license from the farmer and the distributor, all stating it was hemp products. So knowing how to read a lab result, knew that it showed that the Delta 9 was below 0.3%.
That's amazing. So as you start winning these cases, you'll be the hopefully the police departments will be able to train their police officers better in what is enforceable or what's legal and what's not, frankly, right?
Oof. And I sent letters to these law enforcement agencies. So a lot of times they had forfeiture cases with them.
Mhm.
So that what that means is that when they went in and raided the store, they also took all their money out of the cash registers in the safe. So in the forfeiture letters, I make it clear to them what they're doing is wrong, and that they are subject to a lawsuit, and willing to come in there and educate them on the different types of products. And every agency that I've offered that to has vehemently denied it and said that they know what they're talking about, and I do not. So
Well,
we'll see.
yeah, it reminds me of the case that's making a lot of noise about civil asset forfeiture. I don't know if you're familiar with the Afro man case, where they came in there with a warrant saying he was kidnapping somebody and he was dealing drugs on his property. They didn't find anybody who is anybody else other than him and his family, but they did find cash, and he claimed he never got back most of it. In that, and he didn't really have much recourse. Frankly, it's not. It was a couple $100 instead of the couple $1,000 that the your kind of clients in the retail space would be carrying. But you mentioned earlier about the about some other I guess hemp retail spaces, or colloquially called like head shops, right? That
Yep.
got was raided in a couple of days ago. I mean, it is, and being accused of all sorts of illegalities. In the space, it's you know it's I want your take on this idea of uh, enforcement is difficult when you're dealing with people who are actually dealing products that are illegal versus people who are legitimate business people who have their reports, their certifications, their approvals from the U.S. Postal Service. I mean, it is very night and day how some people operate their business and how people don't. So, what do you make of the situation then in Florida overall in terms of do those kind of businesses make it harder for your client to operate? What's the solution?
Oof. I don't know if they make it harder because it's very difficult in Florida specifically. Because realistically, a lot of those issues as well is coming with FDACs and different FDACs inspectors coming out and having a different interpretation of what a childproof packaging means. The statute, I think that most people are reading is very clear on what that means. And the Department of Agriculture has significantly expanded on, the definition of attractive to children. Obviously, I think most people believe that they are working within the framework. I don't think I've really had any shop owners who were knowingly selling illegal products. The last one that was just rated a couple days ago, it seems like they started that with a 7OH issue. So I don't know if they had higher amounts of 7OH than they're allowed to, or law enforcement just thinks it's all illegal. I don't really know would happen in those circumstances. But really, it's difficult when you're dealing with faulty tests and law enforcement who just thinks anything that says THCA is illegal. So it makes it really almost impossible to be compliant. And even if you are compliant, like what we believe Smokey Jones was, all his products were 100% compliant, they still come in and raid and seize everything, and try to destroy a company's livelihood. We're going after them for a couple $100,000 when the dust settles on this one.
Sure, 100%. How can members of Florida Can and the public help your case, support Smokey Joe's in their fight for consistent? If you're going to have regulations, they better be consistently applied. What can we do to help?
Yeah. Well, I mean, number one, court support is always great to show up for court and to support these people who are going through it, who are kind of the tip of the spear for everyone in the state. I think his case will end up trickling down and should get most of the cases throughout the state dismissed. And on appeal is going to have a huge impact on, the roadside tests. Honestly, if we can get those thrown out, we have a totally different climate with officers being able to arrest people on the side of the road for cannabis. And just so everyone knows, no matter what, you have hemp on you unless it's a medical card and it's in the actual container that you purchased it in, because the odor of cannabis is really no longer the sufficient for probable cause for search, but they will trick you with a multitude of other questions to try to be able to insinuate, well, because you said you didn't have a medical card and still smelled like cannabis in your car, now I'm going to search your car because now you don't have a legal reason for it. Things of that nature. They'll do and say anything that they can to get people to, um, you say something that, regardless, anything you say can and will be used against you is 100% true, regardless of whether or not you intended it as an incriminating statement or not. I have this client that was under this buy bus selling THCA or hemp flower online. Cops from 3 hours away across the state, set him up with a buy bust operation. And then he was telling his parents on the phone call that they busted him because they say he was selling marijuana as hemp. They put that in the police report saying that he was admitting that he was selling hemp like counterfeit hemp marijuana saying it was hemp. Like, and then it's like, oh, now you're just selling illegal marijuana. So they kind of changed their story as to what they said, but on the video, it's clear what he says, that he wasn't saying I was selling hemp as marijuana, right?
Sure.
So it's very interesting. People just got to be quiet, but court support is great. And then when bills come up that try to destroy this system, obviously follow Florida Can and get in touch with your legislators. I thought it was great that I didn't see the THCA formula or total THC definition even introduced this legislative session, and yet that's what our client is getting arrested and persecuted for. And I really think the state knows they have no chance, and that's why they're trying to continue this to try to figure something out.
Well, you let us know when the next hearing is going to be scheduled that you want our support for, and we'll put out the word. So I thank you very much, Michael Minardi, cannabis attorney. Plug. This is the time for you to plug yourself. Let us know how people can find you if they're in trouble or need legal advice.
So the hearing is set for March 27th at 9 a.m. in courtroom 16 in Hillsborough County. That's right in Pierce Street and Twigs. So I think it's going to go forward, because I think what I'm going to say tomorrow in court, the state's not going to be able to justify granting their continuance. So to find me, it's minardilaw.com. That's MINARDILAW.com. We do specialize in criminal defense in all areas of the state. We do also do personal injury and slip and fall litigation and stuff now. I brought on a great new attorney who's very much entwined in the psychedelic space. So we are representing a few different churches in the state and around the country right now to get them set up to do ceremonies with, either ayahuasca or psilocybin or DMT. So we are working on that, and that's our next new passion in pushing the law forward. But right now, I'm trying to mostly protect employee rights, continue to push for patients' rights, and continue to stop people from getting arrested and reduce the officer's ability to search vehicles based on the odor of cannabis, or dog search on the odor of cannabis once and for all in the state of Florida, so that cannabis users don't have to worry every time that they get pulled over that it automatically is going to equal an arrest.
Awesome. Well, congratulations for all the work that you've done successfully, and more to come. Knocking on wood, right? So,
my friend.
Yes, thank you for participating. We hope to see you again coming on to Elevated Intel, the podcast hosted by the Florida Cannabis Action Network.
Thank you, man. Have a great day.
Okay.
Imagine standing shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of Floridians, business owners, and advocates inside the state capitol, ready to make real change. That's what Cannabis at the Capitol is all about. The signature Lobby Day and Education Expo from the Florida Cannabis Action Network, where voices intersect with policy and passion turns into progress. For just $50 for individuals, you'll gain access to expert briefings, self-guided meetings with lawmakers, and the power to influence Florida's cannabis future. For businesses, $300 unlocks premium access. Connect with decision makers, showcase your enterprise, and build alliances in a fast-growing sector. Whether you're a medical patient seeking stronger access, an entrepreneur navigating regulations, or a company ready to stand at the forefront of industry change, this is your platform. One day in Tallahassee could shift a lifetime of regulation. Join us. Be present. Be heard. Be the change at Cannabis at the Capitol.